which is a status update and possible commission guidance, I emphasize guidance, on amended initial statement of reasons for section 238.5 Title 14 private stocking permits. And in the interest of trying to set a good foundation upon which commissioners you may have a thoughtful and informed debate on what to do next, we have organized two 20-minute presentations for you. The first one by the department on explaining why they're in front of you, and then a representative from the aquaculture industry with a presentation on why they have, what their issues are and why they're opposed to it. And so with that, Mr. Stafford Lair, Fisheries Branch Chief.
Good afternoon, Stafford.
Good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners, Executive Director, Chief Deputy Director. We're here today to present the Department's recommendations for amending the current private stocking regulations. A little bit of a background here. In 2006, the Department was sued over our hatchery stocking hatchery and stocking program for the lack of a CEQA document. During the development of the document and subsequent interim court orders, private stocking was elevated in the analysis of the document. In fact, the Superior Court outlined that in the interim order directly. So that private stocking permits, we needed to perform an analysis for stocking on listed and sensitive species, and that was lacking prior to the completion of the EIR. Therefore, based upon the direction that was outlined in the CEQA document and the court's direction, the Department performed an evaluation of every stocked water in our program. So the Department is here today to talk about the exemption that currently is in Title 14, Section 238.5C. And the Department is recommending removing the exemption for 37 counties and 8 species of fish that do not require a private stocking permit or tracking by the Department. And we're recommending the removal of this exemption to protect California natural resources, protect state and federally listed species, and improve fair business practices statewide. And I must remind everyone that we are going through this process for every water body the Department currently is stocking. So this issue was brought before the Commission back in October of 2010. At the direction of the Commission and several questions that were asked by the Commission to the Department, we met with the Aquaculture Development Committee on February 9th of 2011 and October 14th of 2011, and the Department also met with several industry representatives and to discuss this matter. And just for a point of record, we acknowledge that the Aquaculture Development Committee was in 100% opposition of the Department's proposal.
Stafford, if I may, I need to interrupt just for a moment.
Yes,
I
sir.
have to step out of the meeting for just a second. The only reason that I would interrupt this is because you might draw the wrong conclusion. I have a wife in the hospital.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, and I must state that after meeting with members of the Aquaculture Development Committee and industry representatives, the Department did attempt to modify our proposal to meet their interest and concerns. And we're here to outline what those concerns were, how we attempted to address those in our modified proposal. So the goals of the proposal are simple. We seek the long-term resource sustainability that will enjoy the public's use and enjoyment in the future. We seek to implement a goal, the private stocking program, that does not threaten the sustainability of fish and wildlife resources, and that we can ensure that recreational angling opportunities continue for now and in the future. So we have to start out with some baseline here. The guiding statute is Fish and Game Code 6400 and 6401. These were enacted by the legislature in 1957. Fish and Game Code 6400 states that it's unlawful to place in waters of the state live fish without written permission from the department. Fish and Game Code Section 6401 provides that a person may stock fish in a stream or lake under a department permit pursuant to commission regulations. The question arose and has arisen in several different venues. What's defined as waters of the state? In Fish and Game Code, it tiers off of Water Code section. Water Code section 13,050 subsection E identifies that as waters of the state, meaning any surface water, groundwater, including saline waters within the boundaries of the state. And along that line, the Attorney General and state courts have interpreted the term to include all waters within the boundaries of the state, and it's a broad interpretation. Private stocking regulations. Tiering off Fish and Game Code, in 1983 the Commission adopted 238.5, and that stated that no person shall stock aquatic plants or animals into waters of the state without a private stocking permit. In 1991, this section was amended so that 8 species of fish may be stocked without a permit by a registered aquaculturist in 37 counties or portions thereof, if they are stocked in a privately owned reservoir, lake, or pond, or in a publicly owned lake covered by a cooperative stocking agreement between the department and the operator of that reservoir.
Stafford, can I interrupt you just for a second?
Yes.
Because I think this is an important clarification point. Why 37 counties? What was it about those counties that caused the department to single them out, exempt them?
The exact history of that is I don't have the full answer. I have bits and pieces of it from members of the industry that were here during that time and from long-term department employees. One element that was identified is the 8 species of fish were ubiquitously distributed already throughout waters of the state. The concerns were that there were not significant biological impacts at that time, and there's also been alluding to the fact that in order to reduce workload on department staff at that time, that it was felt that this was okay to do. And I'll get to a map that highlights those 37 counties, or portions thereof, because some numbers don't add up here. So here are the 8 exempted species. Common in throughout the state: rainbow trout, 3 species of sunfish, or 4 species of sunfish, the native Sacramento perch being the exclusion in terms of natives, along with rainbow trout, channel catfish, blue catfish, and white catfish. And I must state that there's numerous publications about the impacts of sexually viable diploid rainbow trout and the potential for genetic influence on wild rainbow stocks and steelhead. There's also numerous publications and recovery plans that have identified members of the sunfish family as having severe impacts upon native amphibians and many native fish species. So this is the area of the state that is dealt with in the exemption. The portions of counties thereof basically follows the Highway 49 corridor and the foothills of the Sierras down through here in the southern Sierra around the Tehachapi's, looping back around to include all of Southern California and up through the Central Valley. What are the issues with the exemption? Why has it suddenly been elevated here? Number one is the inability to determine biological impacts on listed and sensitive species. No information, no knowledge of what's going on. We've got identified species on the list that have been shown to be detrimental in some cases, and we're just not able to determine impacts. The environmental and biological situation has changed significantly in the landscape of California in the last 20 years. And thirdly, it creates an unfair business practice for those counties that are currently required to have a private stocking permit. Statewide, listed fish and amphibian species have increased by 45% to 49 species total since 1991. One of the questions that has come up is, why doesn't your program attempt to deal with all just listed fish and amphibians? There's 157 species in the state of California. Our CEQA document that was certified by the department in 2010 identified 89 species of sensitivity or listed by state or federal government. Also, many newly listed fish and amphibians species are located within the 37 county area. I'm going to highlight one here that we just discussed last commission meeting in November. So here's the same map, and what I have done is I have overlaid the South Coast Steelhead Ecological Significant Unit, or as in current terms, the distinct population segment. The issue that is before us right now is within this red polygon here, which is the designated ESU, it lies on top of the exempted counties. We can have rainbow trout stocked within occupied steelhead watersheds, and let's just be clear here, any pond or lake in which a fish is stocked, that fish will escape at some point in the future. The department has more than enough history with that of fish escaping. So we now have rainbow trout, not knowing if they're triploid or diploid, stocked into a federally endangered species watershed, potential for escape, genetic dilution if they're diploid fish. How do you mitigate it? How do you deal with it? How do you even acknowledge that it's occurring with the exemption? So within the CEQA document, the department developed a mitigation measure that has been characterized, it is Appendix K in the document. There's been a lot of reference to it. There's been a lot of questions asked of the department. Well, it's a pretty broad extent that's outlined in Appendix K. So when we were first presented this issue by the court in 2010, and by the final decision document that the department settled upon, what do? We have to evaluate our waters, and we're tearing off this Appendix K. So we developed a pre-stocking evaluation protocol, and it identified these sensitive species that were listed, the 89 decision species, and it went through a stepwise analysis of, number one, are they there? Number two, is there going to be an adverse impact by the stocking activity? Are there management plans that need to be evaluated? So if you're stocking fish that's contrary to the guidelines laid out in an aquatic biodiversity management plan, or a federal recovery plan, or a state status review plan. So it just laid out all the documents that staff had to go through. So it entails a desktop review or a site visit to determine the impacts to listed or sensitive species, a review of the plans as I highlighted. Do any of the 89 decision species exist at the proposed stocking location? And will stocking of fish impact any of these 89 species? So there's a lot of assertions out there that, oh my gosh, you go into a watershed or you got a pond there and you need to evaluate it, and suddenly you're looking for 89 species. Let's be explicitly clear. The first level of review is, are the 89 species? Number one is, we know that coastal cutthroat trout or Paiute cutthroat trout are not going to occur in the southern part of the state in a xeric habitat. There's a first review. So as you put the geographic and ecoregion filters on the list of 89 species, your number of species that you begin to evaluate starts to drop out. And it gets to a point of, with any region of the state, you're dealing with less than 20 species. And then subsequently it begins to drop out even more when you start to evaluate the certain type of habitat. A stream-dwelling fish does not reside in a pond. Therefore, that stream-dwelling fish, or a bird that is native to there's one bird that we do have to evaluate that is native to a stream corridor that's listed in a federal critical habitat. Well, it's not going to exist at that pond. So the filters begin to reduce the number of species that you evaluate. Also, within the proposal, the department was asked to bring back a fee structure that was clearly understood. We need to, right now the current permit fee is $54. And as I get in later on into this, I'll show you how many of these we actually did for private stocking permits. So cost recovery to implement the program is essential, and we're trying to be fair and uniform with this. So a new applicant walks in, says, I want a private stocking permit. The base fee is $149. What does that entail? $58. Every department issued permit now has a base fee of $58. $91 is the staff time required to perform the pre-stocking evaluation at the desktop level. What does that mean? That's 1 hour of environmental scientist rate, 1 hour of office tech to process. So someone already has a private stocking permit and they want to renew it. The renewal fee, $91. 1 hour review, 1 office hour tech, and out the door. Potentially additional fees. Say it's a complex review. It's a species that, or multiple species that need additional analysis. Base rate for additional time spent on the documents, $58 an hour. If there is a trip to the site, a unitized cost of staff, 1 hour staff time, 51 cents per mile, average rate of travel 60 miles per hour. They're on site. That gets them 1 hour. They're on site. If there's an additional hour of survey costs or perhaps even more than that, the rate would be $58 per hour. So the existing program in the counties that currently require a private stocking permit. In 2010, the department received 130 private stocking permit applications. 122 private stocking permits were issued by the department. Of those 122, a pre-stocking evaluation site visit was required due to that first level of review, habitat, location, couple species, one species. So 20 site visits were performed by the department. What about the troublesome ones? Out of the 130, 8 were problematic, and the department was not prepared to undertake performing those surveys. When we hear thousands or tens of thousands of dollars required for a survey, we're talking about these. So 94% of the applications that the department received were actually issued. I need to be very clear with that. So let's talk about examples of deferred pre-stocking evaluation. White Rock Lake, Monterey County. Dam located on Black Rock Creek, California red-legged frog habitat, identified in the cursory review. The department acknowledged that we needed concurrence from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who has listed the species as threatened, still awaiting approval from the service. Trout Lake, you have received a letter in your packet from Mr. Dormady. This is his water body that he's referring to here. The dam is located on San Clemente Creek, where federally listed threatened steelhead are found in the creek. NOAA did not object if an adequate barrier was maintained between the lake and the creek. He acknowledged in his letter he's planting triploid trout already. That's the type of mitigation evaluation process that is going through on a water body here. Out of the 122 that the department processed, most of them were, I want to put largemouth bass in a pond, and they were in Putnam County. The biologist knows the area, knows that there's bass already existing in the pond, it's approved. Or he wants to plant trout there. We know it's a trout-bearing body of water, it's approved. So, the department is requesting that the commission allow us to go to notice at the February meeting to begin the public discussion of this matter. It would be a year process to do so. We're seeking to remove the permit exemption to create a fair business practice, recovering program costs. We seek to formalize the pre-stocking process. That was one of the points. I'll wrap up here. One of the points that the industry wanted. They wanted it in regulation, and we have attempted to do so in our proposal. The department is not requesting changes to fish health or invasive species inspections at this time. The regulatory authority to perform these inspections already exists. We're also not requesting changes to the following statutes governing sport fish license requirements or the definition of aquaculture or aquaculture facilities. Our expected results are the sustainability and management of fish and wildlife resources, long-term viability of businesses that are dependent upon stocking fish. We must be clear, there will be private stocking permits that will be denied, as they are under the current program, to protect listed or sensitive species. And I'll conclude there. Any questions?
Thank you, Stafford. Any questions from the commission? We're going to move on to the next presentation. Commissioner Bayless.
Sorry. There. My understanding is we were looking at certain areas, and then we've included a broader net to include more. Always from the beginning on this, were we going after all people that did stocking? Or did that change? Because we've seen some of this before. There were some upper counties, right, we were looking at, and now we're doing this statewide. Is that correct?
Well, under 238.5C, there is subsection C, there is the 37 counties or portions thereof are called out in the regulation. Those counties that are not called out already do require a private stocking permit.
So has this been a surprise to the industry? Go ahead, Sonky. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what you're remembering is over a year ago, the commission first received this request, and based on the controversy and the concerns, the commission actually asked the department and the aquaculture industry to go back to the drawing board and see if they could come up with something that worked. A year later, we're back.
Got it.
So,
thank you for it. I just wanted that refresher on the record.
I mean, we've met with the development committee twice, and we had a separate meeting with industry and their representatives, and they presented an alternative.
Yes.
We looked at that alternative. We said, where do we have common ground? And we attempted to incorporate where we had common ground. There is disagreement.
Okay. Thank you.